The continuance reads the order at the ninth bell, which is their way of saying the decision is sacred and the outcome is already written. I am 3 rows back, in the observer gallery, and I have a clear line of sight to the delegation table where Senior Envoy Sale is sitting with her, hands folded and her eyes on the presiding archivist as he speaks. His name, formally rendered, runs to 11 syllables. The Vorath title chain before it runs to 30. I stopped writing it down after the second session. By authority of the continuance, in assembly, he says, and the Chamberlain responds with a low resonant tone. 160 Vorath officials striking the arms of their seats in unison, a ratification chord they've used for 400 years. Transit denial order, class absolute, is issued against the Terran Compact and all vessels operating under Compact registry. Effective upon the closing of this session, no Terran vessel shall traverse a licensed corridor within continuance jurisdiction. No Terran application for transit license shall be received, considered, or acknowledged. The Terran Compact is by this record non-compliant. He sets the document down. The chamber goes very still in the way that chambers go still when they are waiting for something to break. I watch Envoy Sale. She has not moved. Hands are still folded. Her chin is level. The continuance archivist watches her the way a man watches a structure he has just undermined, with professional patience and the faint pleasure of anticipating the collapse. The Vorath to her left, an observer from their trade bureau, leans slightly forward. They are all leaning slightly forward. The entire chamber, 160 delegates and their attached staff, is waiting for Sale to ask for an emergency clause, to request a grace period, to invoke the Compact's standing petition rights, to do something that acknowledges the order has weight. She unfolds her hands. She reaches into the case beside her chair and removes a data chip, standard Compact format, the kind used for transit manifests and routing logs. She sets it on the table in front of the archivist podium, flat, with a small, precise click. Then she smiles. I have worked 3 postings with Sale. I have seen her negotiate the Moret fuel accords, sit through 14 hours of Vorath procedural delay without losing composure, and tell a hegemony commodore to his face, threat assessment was arithmetically incorrect. I know her smile. The one she is wearing now is not the diplomatic smile. It is not the patient smile. It is the smile of a person who has waited a long time for a specific moment, and is now watching it arrive on schedule. She laughs. It is quiet. It is not performative. It is the laugh that escapes when something has finally, after years of anticipation, become official. Then she stands, picks up her case and walks out. The delegation walks with her. 12 people moving in measured step through the main chamber doors. No one speaks. The doors close behind them with a sound that is not quite an echo. I stay in the observer gallery because I am listed as independent staff on the session manifest, and because I want to see what happens next. What happens next is, the archivist picks up the data chip. He holds it the way officials hold things they did not expect to receive. Carefully, reading the label, recalibrating. A technical clerk is called forward. The chip is inserted into the chamber's document reader. The holographic display above the table opens. The room reads. I read with them from my angle, and I already know what is on the chip because I helped compile it. Because I have been helping compile it in increments for the last 2 years of my posting. Because the Transit Analysis section of Compact Intelligence has been compiling it for 6 years before that. Because a very quiet, very patient infrastructure program has been running for 8 years, building routes that do not appear in any continuance licensing register, threading corridors that the Vorath drew the maps for, and then decided were commercially unviable, and traversing them, regularly, efficiently, without incident, without filing a single application with the body that now believes it has just locked our door. The display shows transit logs, 40 corridors, 8 years of completed runs, cargo manifests, navigation timestamps, entry and exit coordinates cross-referenced against continuance corridor charts. Every route matching a licensed corridor to within navigational tolerance. Every transit completed before the class absolute denial order existed. None of them licensed. All of them done. The archivist reads for a long time. A delegate near the back of the chamber, I don't know his section, he has a trade bureau badge, says something to the colleague beside him. The colleague does not respond. She is reading the display. The numbers are not complicated. 40 corridors. Approximately 930 individual transits logged across the 8-year window. OData. Route efficiency ratings. A final summary page, formatted in the continuance's own standard for transit compliance documentation, showing completion rates, deviation margins, safety records. The document is thorough because SAIL is thorough, because the people who built the program were thorough. Because when you spend 8 years doing something without asking permission, you keep very records. The archivist sets the chip down. Someone near the front of the chamber asks, quietly, whether the logs can be disputed. A technical clerk answers. She speaks for about 40 seconds. The substance of what she says is, the navigation timestamps are cross-referenced with publicly archived astronomical positioning data, and they are consistent. The cargo manifests match compact trade filings on the other end, and the route coordinates are accurate to the continuance's own corridor charts. The delegate with the Trade Bureau badge asks whether there is an applicable penalty framework for unlicensed transit across a Class 1 corridor. A different clerk answers. She speaks for about 20 seconds. The applicable framework, she explains, requires that the continuance first demonstrate material harm arising from the transits in question. She pauses. She adds that the framework was written in the assumption that unlicensed transit would involve route instability, cargo loss, or navigation failure. She pauses again. She does not say the obvious thing, which is that 930 transits without a single incident does not easily meet that threshold. The chamber goes quiet again. I think about what the Vorath built this body to do. They built it to control the movement of goods and ships through the inner arm. They built it 400 years ago, when controlling the corridors meant controlling everything that mattered. Every trade relationship, every military supply line, every political negotiation that required one party to cross 100 light years to reach the other. The licensing system was not bureaucratic preference. It was the architecture of power. You moved when they said you could move, on routes they approved, under terms they set, and you paid for the privilege. And if they decided you were non-compliant, the corridors closed and you stopped. That was the premise. The data chip is still on the table. I watch the archivist look at it for a moment that goes on longer than procedural ceremony requires. He is not rereading the document. He is a man who has just administered a lock to a door and been handed 8 years of evidence that the door was decorative. A senior delegate from the continuance's route authority section stands and asks that the session be adjourned for technical review. The motion passes without a counter-vote. The chamber empties slowly, in the manner of officials who are preserving dignity by not moving quickly. I remain until the last of the floor staff have gone. Then I walk down from the observer gallery and cross the chamber floor to the document reader, where the display is still open. I look at the final page of the summary. The last line is a compact routing certification, standard format, noting that all logged transits were completed safely, on schedule, and without material incident. Below it, SAIL has added one line in the continuance's own formal record notation, filed for the record. I pick up my case and walk out into the corridor, where SAIL and the delegation are waiting by the transit hub. She is talking to one of the junior attachés about the next posting schedule, in a normal tone of voice, as if they have just finished a routine administrative session. I fall in behind them. The continuance will convene a technical review. They will spend months determining whether 930 unlicensed transits constitute a violation of a framework that requires demonstrable harm. They will find, eventually, that the question of harm is difficult to establish when the record shows no harm occurred. They may revise the framework. They will certainly be more careful about which doors they try to lock. In the meantime, the 40 corridors will remain open. They were never closed to begin with.